Welcome to Cinema Relics Live. Today's going to be a fun episode. We've got Anthony Scott, a very well-known stop-motion animator who's worked on films such as James and the Giant Peach, Toy Story 2, and A Bug's Life, Monkey Bone, Corpse Bride, Coraline, Paranorman, Little Prince, Pinocchio, and one of my favorites, The Nightmare Before Christmas.
I'm great. How are you today?
Doing great. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you spending the time and talking about your time doing stop motion, working in the film industry.
Yeah, sure thing.
So let's start. I've already introduced you, some of the big films that you worked on. You've been doing this a long time, obviously, and your work is spectacular. But how did you start? What was like your first interest in stop motion? Did you do any experiments, anything like that?
Yeah, it goes way back to when I was a kid. I had all these cartoon characters I used to draw on comic strips and little stories, but I wanted to figure out how to make them move. I found a book in the library. I found one book, and it was about kids making their own films, and so it inspired me to try it myself. And I was about 11 years old when I first started experimenting with all kinds of forms of animation, the cutout animation, animating clay and toys. So, and that went through my teenage years. I tried shooting live action and all this other things as well, but I kept gravitating back towards stop motion animation. I was, always inspired by the original King Kong movie and the Rankin Bass holiday specials.
Oh, those are some of my favorites too.
Yeah. So that's how I got started, and it's, I had other interests in film too, but I knew I wanted to work in the film business and just kept coming back to stop motion as being the thing. You can build everything, put it on a table, animate it, create your stories, and
you can control it all, right? Yourself, in a lot of ways.
It's a miniature live action set.
That's right. That's right. Well, what was your first job, your first professional job in stop motion?
Yeah, so I was raised in Michigan. When I was making my movies. I knew I had
not
to
too
get
far
out.
from where we are. We're in Chicago.
Okay. Oh, I love Chicago.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I decided I had to move to California. My first job was, it took a couple of years to break in, but eventually I got my first big break on the Gumby TV series in 1987, and I was hired by Art Clokey himself
Oh, that's
as
cool.
an animator. And I worked on that for a year. And for me, it was like animation school because I didn't go to a formal school.
Right.
I went to a community college in Lansing, Michigan, took all their film classes, and I experimented, did some stop motion, some live action. But yeah, Gumby. So I was animating every day for a year, and made a lot of friends that I ended up working with on other projects. Yeah, there was a huge talent pool that was created from that project.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people that went on to work on films like Nightmare and Coraline worked on those original Gumby shows.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've worked with a lot of really interesting directors over the years. Henry Selick, obviously on Nightmare and Coraline. Tim Burton. You worked with Guillermo del Toro recently, and Travis Knight. What makes a good stop motion director?
I think in my experience, if a director really knows what they want and has a handle on the story, it's important that each shot carries the story through to the next,
Right.
and tells the story well and doesn't confuse the audience. If you have too much detail, or if the audience doesn't know what to look at or what to focus on, then that can be confusing. So I think
Right.
a really good director knows what's important, can leave the extraneous stuff behind and not focus on that, but really focus on the storytelling.
And how do you, as an animator, work with the director? I mean, obviously, there are there are actors, there's voice actors, but there are no physical actors, so you're kind of representing the physical actor by being the animator, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Well, we meet with the director in editorial typically, and go over the shot, what they want to see out of the shot, and what's important to convey. And
Right.
most feature films, there's a budget and time to do a test, maybe two tests, rough blocks or pop throughs we call them,
Right.
to show the basic poses and the timings. So then the director feels confident that, oh yeah, this is going to work, or no, let's change this. gives them a little preview of what's to come before I actually start shooting the stop motion, because it's difficult to change what you're doing in the middle of a shot.
Yes, it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
and at least back in the day, if you had to stop, you had to start over from scratch, didn't you? Now it's not so much the case, but
Yeah, they can do set visits during the day, and because we use software, you can actually play the entire shot. And they can ask you to cut back, like, oh, let's cut back, 30 frames and reshoot that section and then carry on through the end. That's usually how that works,
right, okay.
if a change is needed. And it works, it's fine.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Are there any directors that don't work in stop motion that you would find interesting to see their work or want to work with? Theoretically.
Yeah, I just saw One Battle After Another by Paul Thomas
Right.
Anderson, and I think that would be interesting if you wanted to get into stop motion.
Oh, that would be a really interesting choice. I mean, anything he does is amazing. So let's hope he decides to dive into stop motion to write a story that involves do a little craziness there. That would be awesome. That'd be awesome.
That'd be great.
One of my favorite films next to Nightmare Before Christmas is Coraline, and I went into it with high expectations. I love Nightmare. I was very familiar with Henry Selick's work, and Neil Gaiman being the writer. I was like, okay, this has got to be good, and I walked out of there just being shocked. I saw it in the theater in the true 3D presentation the first time I saw it, and it was like looking into a stage. It was like a film meets a stage play. What was it like working in 3D? Because this is a real 3D film, unlike a lot of films that are done in either stop mo or in animation, which they can do that through the computers, right? And you can wear 3D goggles, but literally you're shooting with one camera shot in two different positions. How does that affect the animation?
Yeah, there was a lot of attention and care given to how much depth we put into each shot.
Right.
And we opened it up in the other world and closed it, almost made it flat in the real world. So the audience would actually feel that. And I think it was really, really effective. It gave the chance for the eye to rest, and then recover and then get back into it when we went back into the other world.
Right.
But as far as the animators, we had to shoot, a left and right exposure for each exposure. So we had a couple, it took a little bit extra time. The camera was on a little slider and it would just move a couple of millimeters over.
So it was the same camera, it just moved over.
Same camera, yeah. And we hooked it up to, software and motion control that would control that.
Right.
So it was all automatic. You press the button, it just kind of happened left, right, and
Right.
then went back to left for the next frame.
Interesting, interesting. Well, I'd like to show you a piece that's from my collection that you are, I'm sure, familiar with, because I believe you filmed a few scenes with this character, at least maybe not this particular puppet, but with this character, the Bedlam, the Beldam actually, sorry, from Coraline, the Other Mother, version 3,
Yeah.
right? So
Yep.
what can you tell me about this character? Obviously, it's a very big puppet. It's very delicate looking, but what were the challenges working with this particular puppet?
Yeah, I think with the idea of that final design was to, create a spider-like character, and then the whole spider web
Right?
that drops down. That was actually added a little bit later. That wasn't originally in there. They added
Really?
it in a really good addition to the story. But so, it helps explain what she is. She's not exactly a spider, but she has spider qualities. And so
Right.
definitely this web, entrapping her victims.
And she
that whole
feeds on her victims, their
Yeah.
emotional quality. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so a very frightening character, especially this version when she's chasing Coraline, trying to get her when she's running, trying to escape back into the tunnel. That whole scene.
Very
Um,
terrifying.
yeah, we went through a couple different versions and a lot of test versions. My
Were you
job is
involved in the design?
no, I wasn't involved in the design exactly. I had to test. I was the supervising animator, so I would test different versions of the puppet. And her outfit, for one thing, they tried a couple of different variations of the dress, And so I would do different walk tests to see how the dress moved, things like that,
Right,
and give
right.
them feedback. And originally there was another version of the other mother that looked too much like Corpse Bride, and so they changed it to something completely different. But early versions on the storyboard, there was a comment made like, "Wow, it looks kind of like Corpse
Yeah,
Bride."
he
And
didn't want to go
so
there.
so it was time to like, okay, let's revisit the design, and they came up with this one, which
Well, she's terrifyingly cool. I mean, I think she is super neat because one part skeleton, one part spider, one part, insect, one part living needle and threads. It's wild. Was it a delicate puppet to use on set? Because this version, this puppet here is missing one of the fingers. I'm guessing it broke off. It seems fairly delicate. At least the hands do.
yeah, I mean, this was several years ago. I think, I believe I had a couple of shots with her, and I attached her to a rig to help support her.
Right.
Because most of my shots were not full body shots.
Oh, right.
I could attach her
Portraiture
from,
style shots. More like portraiture style shots, cowboy shots, or
just like from the waist up.
right.
Sometimes you saw part of the dress, but I don't think I had a single shot where you could see her entire body like walking
Right.
or anything like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think a puppet like this, you need to have some kind of rig support because it is very, not so much delicate, but just to help in the animation. It would be more tedious to try to animate it without some kind of support.
I can see, the way the tie down on this is not through the legs. There are four basically spider-like legs, but then there's the one rod up the middle that's the tie down that is the main support for the character.
Yeah. Do the feet have tiny holes in them, or I can't remember how we tied her down exactly. Sometimes
No,
when the
this one doesn't. They're just very
okay.
pointed tips, every one.
Okay, yeah. Sometimes with like the spider in James and the Giant Peach,
Right?
she did have tiny tie downs, but you rarely used those. If she was like walking around on the peach, we would just drill a hole in the set, a very skinny, a very small hole, and put a bent piece of piano wire through the top of the foot, and then just grab it with vice grips underneath. And I don't know if we did that with her for some shots. Like I didn't have any walking shots with this puppet,
Right.
but
Right.
but that's sometimes that's what we do if the feet are just too small to put a threaded tie down in.
Right.
Or
That's interesting. Yeah, because that piano wire is very strong, isn't it?
yeah, you just like bend it with some pliers and create a little hook and just pull it down and pull it really tight, and it works pretty well.
That's smart. Stop motion animation is a very physical job, isn't it?
Yeah, you're on your feet all day. Sometimes you're climbing up on sets, climbing up on ladders, not so much, but sometimes you're climbing up on apple boxes trying to get to something.
Or going under the set to do the tie downs, right?
Some, yeah, reaching underneath. Sometimes you need a second person if it's really, deep into the set down there to help.
Right.
But nowadays they can break the sets apart and digitally put them back in. So the access is a lot better than it used to be back
Yeah,
on
that
Nightmare
makes
Before
sense.
Christmas. Yeah, Nightmare Before Christmas. I remember climbing up, walking around, set pieces, buildings, and puppets, and trying not to knock anything over. And there's a huge shot I worked on that film where there's like 30 characters, and the lock, shock, and barrel are coming through the center of town, through the center of frame on the bathtub, and I had to climb from the set every time, move the bathtub, move the puppets, come back around, get back in front of the camera, and then grab a few more puppets on the right-hand side, and we actually had a second animator on the left-hand side animating those puppets. So we were getting about a second a day on that one.
Tracking all of that movement must have been difficult.
You just get into a headspace, but yeah, you do have to check everything, make sure you're going in the right direction. And back in those days, we had a different kind of grabbing system where you only could see 2 frames. So yeah, you'd have to, they kept overwriting and you couldn't play it back. So you had to really be certain, like, okay, the werewolf is moving this way, and
Right.
keeping notes, make sure you don't get, messed up.
Let's jump back to Coraline. I've got a question for you that maybe you won't be able to answer because it wasn't your department, but I'm curious. Do you remember ever seeing like how many of this particular character they would have had, or other versions of? I imagine they had a lot of Coralines, but I'm curious, like the other mothers, the other fathers, were there lots of copies so they could go out to set while they're being restored, or?
Yeah, and they figured that out by looking at the storyboards and the script, and try to figure out like, oh, we need 6 other fathers, or Coraline they must have had the most of because she was in most of the movie.
Right.
So they
Yeah.
figure out. So this version of the other mother, maybe they only had 2 or 3. I don't know. I don't remember, but it wouldn't be very many.
Right. Right. Last question I have for you before we get into, we'd like to actually do some Q&A with some of the audience if they're interested. But is there a secret to performance as an animator, and specifically, is there a secret to a performance as a stop motion animator? Because secret, like, is there something that a good animator has that is able to create performance that audience really connects with?
I mean, you have to be able to act out your shots, and in the past, I would just act it out myself on my set, make notes on my exposure sheet, and shoot a block. But nowadays, you can actually act out your shot in front of your, a video camera, and
Right.
multiple variations of it, and figure out like, oh, I like this, version 2, and show it to the director, see if they agree. And it's something you can quickly turn around. That's very helpful, the live action reference. Either myself or I get someone else to act it out.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So you gotta have to be an actor yourself, don't you?
You do, yeah.
Yeah. Very
and,
cool.
and a lot of us are not like the type of actor that would want to get on stage and act, but in front of a live audience or anything like that. But we have our own like process.
Yeah. Yeah. I imagine you have to figure out the best way to show the intentions of the character through movement, and the best way to do that is to figure it out yourself with your own body or with other actors helping you, right?
Yep. If you do it yourself, and you can kind of feel it in your own body as well, you can feel like where the weight is going.
Right.
It's going to the left, my left leg now, and you make a note of that as well. And all that stuff translates to the puppet. And if you have a really emotional scene, if you can transfer emotions that you are feeling as a human into a puppet, and then the audience in turn feels those same feelings,
Right.
that's a very successful shot.
That's cool. All right, we have a few questions here before you take off.
Okay.
So someone asked, how do you see the next 30 years of stop motion in the industry?
I think that, I see a lot of people interested in still making stop motion. So that is a good sign as far as, animators and people that want to build things.
Right.
Whether or not the studios want to keep investing money into feature films, we'll see.
Because it's expensive, isn't it?
I mean, it's expensive and it's risky because stop motion is kind of in its own little corner in the animation world.
Right.
Some people love it. Some people don't like that style as much. But when I got into this business, there were no feature films.
No.
So it was risky back then, and I think you just do it if you really feel strongly about it. You'll find a way to do it. So in the next 30 years, who knows? I would expect there will be people they'll continue to be directors that want to shoot in stop motion, shoot their features.
Right.
And we have Guillermo, and we have Wes Anderson.
That's right. Yeah,
So,
2 big names that really do like stop motion.
yeah, and Guillermo is kind of the newest addition to this after Pinocchio, and I know
Right.
he wants to do. He has a passion for it. So hopefully,
He's a
can get
collector,
more-
I hear, of stop motion stuff. So he actually was a collector before he became a director of stop motion.
I've seen photos of his collections at his house. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
got
It's crazy.
nice stuff.
It's crazy cool. So another question, do you think there's room for innovation in stop motion currently?
Innovation, like technical.
I would
mean,
imagine that it's a very open-ended question that we got, but I imagine artistically there's got to be, but technically, to still
Yeah,
call
I mean-
it stop motion.
Yeah, they've been over the last 15 years. They're using a lot of digital printing for the faces, so that can be expanded into, they can print out props, different scales very quickly. There's a lot of incorporation of computer graphics and other characters within the stop motion environment. So that's all happening now. So in the future, I'm sure as technology changes, people will bring in the tools that help tell the story, really.
Great. Well, Anthony, I appreciate you spending time and talking to me today. I hopefully you and I can talk in the future. I have tons of questions for you. about the making of all these films. I think you're an amazing animator, and I really want to appreciate. I want to call out to Martin, our buddy Martin Minier, for putting us in touch. I know you worked with him in the past in a few projects. So,
Yep. Okay, that sounds good.
thanks a lot, Anthony.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So I'd like to point out that this weekend we're releasing a new episode of Cinema Relics Investigates that has to do with another Coraline puppet. Actually, in this case, it's Coraline with the Coraline with the star sweater. It's a great piece that I got at the same time that I purchased this piece in the Leica auction, and we dive into it with Martin, and Martin gives a lot of interesting perspective on it because Martin actually won a Technical Academy Award for working on that film. So we get a lot of insight to it. So this is going to be a good one. Check it out. This Saturday at 7 a.m. Central is when it drops. So why don't everybody get on YouTube at 7 a.m. Central, even those LA West Coasters, and let's crash YouTube. I know it's not going to be possible, but I'd love to try it. Every once in a while, a film comes along that doesn't just tell a story, it changes the way stories can be told. In 2009, Coraline did exactly that. It was spooky, beautiful, and a little unsettling. But more than anything, it was a technical and artistic marvel. The first stop-motion feature ever filmed entirely in true 3D, and the first to use 3D printing to literally give its characters a face. Every prop in Coraline was finished by hand, from hand-knitted sweaters and micro-tailored clothing to the scaled buildings and the complex fiber optic lighting rigs. It was a perfect marriage of artistry and technology, and it changed the future of stop-motion filmmaking. And what makes this episode even more special is that one of our own, Martin Minier, helped make it happen. Martin created Coraline's groundbreaking facial animation system using cutting-edge industrial rapid prototyping technology, which gave animators unprecedented control over emotion and expression. And that work earned him an Academy Award. This is a remarkable artifact, and if you look at it long enough, you can almost see how a bit of movie wizardry gave Coraline her soul. So hopefully you're excited about that episode. It's a good one. We're going to transition into something that I think is a little more appropriate for the time of year. We're close to Halloween. Coraline is a kind of a dark and foreboding film, and the Harry Potters are not necessarily dark and foreboding, although the later films could be a little bit. There's certainly one character that is, and that is Voldemort. And we have here a wand that I believe is production made. It's a Voldemort wand used by Ralph Fiennes. I always thought it was Ralph Fiennes, but it's Ralph Fiennes is how you pronounce it. This particular wand is a light-up version, so when you twist the base, the wand lights up, and it's actually very bright straight into the lens, but not so much from the side. You can still see it, but it's very bright. Now, this wand is, I think, especially interesting. It's one of the most interesting visually wands in the film, is because it screams death and it screams dangerous. It's it's made out of, or meant to look like it's made out of bone. Could be an animal bone, could be a human bone. Voldemort is a very dangerous character. He's possibly one of the most villainous characters in any movie trilogy. He's just so evil. This wand very much represents him. Ever since Alfonso Cuarón started directing, he directed the third film. From then on, they decided to keep the wands different because he basically instated that the wands changed from these simple dowel rod wands to very character-driven designs. and clearly, when Voldemort shows up in the fourth film, which is not a Coraline film, they dove into that idea. In this particular wand, I guess Rafe wanted the wand to be able to hook onto his finger so that when he was using it, he could use it in a very delicate manner and still have it hooked onto his hand so he could move it around and play with it. Now, I'm not going to do that because I'm afraid I'm going to drop it, and I don't want to do that. In this particular case, when someone is using a light-up wand, they would twist it, and the light would turn on. So it's like, expecto patronum, with better, timing than I have. I'm not an actor or a wizard as well. This particular type of wand, and is similar to the Harry Potter episode that we did. We did an episode of Cinema Relics that investigates dealing with Harry Potter's light-up wand, which you should check out. It's on our YouTube channel. This particular one, being a light-up, would have been used for scenes where it's darker and they want to track the wand for VFX purposes. They want to know when the wand is being engaged so they could have the actor turn it on so that maybe the other actors know when to react to a spell that's going off, whether it's something defensive or something spectacle going on, because obviously that's all CGI stuff. It's a really interesting piece. I'm not 100% sure it was used. These wands are relatively easy to replicate. The light-up ones, not as much, especially when you know what type of material that they use inside. This one has a LED pen light inside, so when you screw the bottom off and you pull it off, it actually, and it's quite a lot of turns to take this off, it's just a bunch of AAA batteries. And quadruple, sorry, thank you. Quadruple A batteries. So very small batteries, and literally the pen light is built into it. It must have been molded around it, which is not necessarily easy to line things up in a mold. So this makes it a little bit more unique than the standard wands. This piece came again from a collection that I got a bunch of wands from good 10 years ago. So I've had it quite a while. If anybody out there knows anything about the Voldemort wands from the later films, I would love to hear from them. If there are any tells that I can use to help identify this piece, because I have not been able to screen match it. Speaking of wands, again, check out our Harry Potter episode of Cinema Relics Investigates. It's on our YouTube channel, and it's good. You got to watch it. If you haven't seen it, check it out. This might be Harry Potter's screen-used wand, but can we prove it? Harry's wand is one of the most iconic props in the wizarding world, and one of the most replicated. Seemingly hundreds were made for the films, and millions have been sold in theme parks, pop-ups, and prop auctions. Screen matching one of these? Almost impossible. Almost. In this episode, we're putting my wand to the test, breaking it down against other auctions and the film itself. Because when it comes to Harry Potter's wand, the magic isn't in the spell, it's in the poof. Little interesting thing going on in the prop news of the world. Yesterday there was supposed to be a Sotheby's auction that had a smallish collection, maybe 12, 13, 14 pieces. It was supposed to sell yesterday, and the auction was pulled. There was no information discussed of why it was pulled, but my personal impression of what happened there is that the auction house, and I know this through a few people that collect, was informed of some of the pieces that they had in their collection that they were sharing where they came from were from questionable sources that have been questioned in the industry, certainly have been mentioned in some sources that have been mentioned in the recent LA Times article that I was interviewed for. So I'm very happy that Sotheby's pulled the auction. Don't sell anything unless you know it's right. I think they did the right thing. They'll probably come back at a later time with some pieces better vetted. Maybe all the pieces will be, maybe some of them, maybe none of them. But I think, it's tough from a marketing standpoint to pull an auction like that. It looks bad for them. But honestly, in my opinion, that looks good because they're concerned about authenticity. So kudos to Sotheby's. Very happy about that. And one of the things that's in that auction that got pulled was a Voldemort wand as well. So I'm curious about that one as well. And I think that one may have a bad source. So who knows? We'll see. But I'm curious to hear more about this as the news comes out. The next piece that we're going to show is actually two pieces from a film that I love. It's not a film that is a huge movie like, let's say, Harry Potter or Star Wars or Indiana Jones. It's a movie called The Mist. It's one of the few horror films that I collect from, and I think it's interesting film because it's like any really good horror film. It's the human drama that really is interesting, and some of the most villainous or evil things in the film are the humans, not necessarily the monsters. The monsters are more just like nature dealing with the world, and you've got the humans trying to live in that and ultimately trying to kill each other. If you haven't seen the film, check it out. Hey guys, could you come over here and help me bring these pieces onto the table? They're very big. Thank you, Carson. Thank you, Caleb.
Of course.
All right, the first piece
Cables
is right over
up
here.
over your head?
Yeah, I guess that's the best way to do it. It is a very weird looking piece to collect. It is a tentacle from one of the giant creatures in the film that you actually don't see when this piece is used. So this is a cable controlled tentacle that would have a series of cables run inside with little discs, and then they would control the movement of it up, down, left, right with a controller that would be on the end of the cable, which has since been cut. You can see inside, I want to be very careful, you can see some of the mechanics inside here. This has degraded a little bit over time. I don't know if the camera can see that or not, but it's something that if I didn't love the film so much, I wouldn't have a piece like this because it's rather unique and ugly and whatever you want to call it.
It looks gross.
Yeah, it's gross. This flesh-colored long thing on the desk. But it is an example of practical effects being used in a film that ultimately they decided to CGI over, but it allowed the actors to be interactive with something that looked real. The physical effects from this film were done by K&B, led by Greg Nicotero. Yes, sorry, I had a mind fart. Greg Nicotero, as we know from Walking Dead fame. And I have picked up a number of pieces from this film. I really do love this movie. Let's bring the second piece up and let's talk about that.
Let's do it.
This is also from the same creature, another different tentacle.
Look at
It is the feeding tentacle that it uses. So this thing actually rips flesh from the character, the kid that gets eaten in the movie. Spoiler alert. So these claws are prehensile, so it grabs, and then these little mouths rip flesh off and grab on. So it starts to eat his leg and then pulls him out under the garage door that they're being attacked from, and then he disappears and you hear screaming. It is a very bloody film, but it is just very cool. And one thing about this movie that if you haven't seen it yet, you should consider watching it because you can see it in color or black and white. Frank Darabont released this movie on DVD and then Blu-ray in black and white. It's a masterpiece of human drama, and it's one of the, spoiler alert, the ending is one of the most horrific scenes from a human drama perspective. It is difficult to watch, but worthy of watching. And it's not that it's necessarily bloody. It's just, it's tough. It's tough. And you haven't seen it yet, have you?
I have not seen it yet. It's
surprising.
on the list.
Surprising that you have not seen a movie that we collect from.
I know. There's a lot of movies on the list that I need to catch up on.
But it's Halloween. You got to check this one out. Hey, okay, by next week.
By next week.
You're gonna see it. Right?
Done.
That's
I'll
homework.
I'll watch it this weekend. This
All right,
Friday's
good.
this
Good.
Friday's Halloween. I'll
Good.
do it.
You'll come in weeping after you see it.
Okay.
Watch it with someone.
I'll make sure to have a box of tissues.
That's
next to me
right.
when I
That's
watch
right.
it.
So, do we have any questions?
We have a lot of questions.
All right,
We'll get through some of them. Someone asked what your thoughts are on prop retailers' responsibility in consigning deals, and if the responsibility remains solely with the buyer to do the research.
That's a really good question. No, I do not think the responsibility deals is just the buyer. I feel like that the consigner, the consignee, the company that's selling these pieces, your assumption when you go to an auction house is they are vetting it and making sure that it is good. And if it isn't, it should be their responsibility to guarantee it. And I think there's a lot of buyer beware opinions out there from some of the auction companies. I truly feel that it is the company that's taking the pieces and consigning them in and then selling them. It's their responsibility to make sure the pieces are right. I'm assuming that was the question, right?
Yeah, and going along with that, someone asked kind of the similar, but if there should be monetary compensation on top of the paid value of the piece if it turns out to be not authentic.
You know, that I don't know is fair, because I think the monetary, it should be a refund of the funds that was spent. If they start implementing a monetary, what would the word be, additional amount of money,
Mm-hmm.
the cost of the auctions would go up significantly for them to cover it, and then we'd all be paying for more for stuff that we know is correct. So I don't feel like that should happen. I think there should be a guarantee that you should get your money back, and they should take that responsibility. It should be their responsibility. But anything above and beyond, I don't think that's fair to the auction companies, because the good ones are doing it in good faith, and they get screwed over as well in these situations, unless they're not doing their homework. In some cases, that's not the case, or that is the case. But I think certainly the companies that are actively working on it now know that their ass is on the line when they're doing this. Certainly, that's what I get from the people I talk to at a prop store. They know that they have to make sure they do their homework so that their pieces are verified, because they're going to get it on the back end if it doesn't. It's not only money out of their pocket, but they could lose a customer. They could lose, well, the consignor they probably wouldn't want to deal with. They could lose a customer, and the press is bad. So it's like across the board, it's not good for them.
Right. Someone asked why you think we see so many more fake props on the market than we used to, and also why most of those seem to be from modern movies instead of trying to make fakes from movies that are older.
My opinion of that is that the money has gone up, the value of these things have gone up, that it's more cost effective for people to take the chance of making a fake and trying to sell it, because the money coming in could be so much greater. And it certainly drives more interested parties to do that, in my opinion. It just seems like human nature. I think the more recent films, there is more material, more photos, more copies of recent pieces that they can copy from. And that is certainly, it makes it easier for them to make copies. And there's also more interest in current films. The further a film goes back, unless it's like something like Star Wars, there's not that much information. People don't know that much about it, and there's not as much of a market. So I think it's easier for people to replicate stuff that's in the modern zeitgeist. And there's more information out there, but it's also, if not many props have come out, you can also play in the world of like, nobody's seen these things, especially if a film's just coming out and you're buying pieces from a film that hasn't come out. You shouldn't do that. I've done it in the past, and I've gotten burned. Don't buy anything that from a film that's coming out, because more than likely it's been pulled off a set and stolen. You don't want to do that. And secondly, there's no way to really confirm whether it's real or not.
Right.
Because there's no photos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Another question regarding stop motion. What is the best method of preserving a stop motion piece for long term?
Depends on the materials. A piece like this doesn't have any foam latex. So a piece like this, really, as long as you keep it out of UV light and the temperature is stable, this will last a really long time. Unless there's something about the 3D printing that we don't know about that could cause a problem with this process, because the face and the hair are 3D printed. Foam latex, it depends on how the foam latex, if the puppet's made of foam latex, how it was prepared when it was made, if it was cleaned out really well and they pulled all, they soaked it and washed it with soap and water to get all that sulfur out, it will probably last longer. If it hasn't been kept in the sun, so the UV light will break down foam latex, and then sometimes just the hand oil for stop motion puppets will cause a piece to break down. In that case, you want to, really you want to talk to an expert like Tom Spina or someone like him that has dealt with preserving foam latex, because it is an art and it will change the material, the properties of the material, so that it doesn't degrade anymore, but it also makes it so it does not flex anymore. So it is a consideration you have to do. You have to decide that you're going to preserve it in its current function, and then whether or not you're going to do restoration on top of that.
A couple people have asked what your thoughts are on getting, if they reach out to us, getting your input for authenticating props and getting help with that from you.
I feel like people can do that. I'm open to it. Sometimes there's a lot of time that goes into that, and I just don't have the time to dive into these things. If it's something I am aware of a lot of the information, like I'm already an expert in certain types of foam latex, I can look at that. When it comes to films like stop motion, I know a lot about the modern stop motion films. Indiana Jones, I know a lot about. Things like that, yeah, I'm happy to share my knowledge. When it comes to something that I don't, I'm happy to ask a few questions, and if I don't know, ask a few of my friends, and if they don't know, it's not a service I provide, at least not yet, because it would require a lot more people in my team to do that, but it is an interesting idea. And if anybody has questions, feel free to text us through the comments or email us at info@cinemarelics.com. And one of the guys will get me the information, and we'll get to you eventually.
Mm-hmm. You can also reach out through the social media channels, which I know people have been doing recently as well. Carson here is
one of his many responsibilities here at Cinema Relics is to track all of the social media comments. So he's in charge of getting me that information. I check it from time to time, but he checks it on multiple times a day, on every day.
So kind of along that same vein, would you ever do an episode on YouTube or one of our Cinema Relics Investigates episode with someone else's prop, not one that you own?
Absolutely. Actually, that is our goal. Our goal is to eventually do that, but that if we did that, that would be somebody brings in a piece, we have it for a while, we do the episode, we share everything we have, we probably bring that person onto the set so they can talk about it, so we can make them part of the show. But we're working out the bugs as we do it with our collection. We have a very large collection, but I would love to bring in other people and talk about their pieces. That's the eventual goal.
Cool. And then in honor of Halloween being this weekend, what is your favorite movie to watch this time of year?
Nightmare Before Christmas. Easy. Yeah, because I can watch that with my family. I can't watch The Mist with my family. So.
Yeah.
Okay, how about you?
Easy. Probably the same. I usually wait till right after Halloween and then I watch the Nightmare
That's right,
Before
because
Christmas
of the Christmas connection.
Yeah, exactly. And then every
yeah.
year, that's what I watch. So
yeah.
Same.
Cool. All right.
And that's all the questions we have, I think.
Great. Well, like to call out again. We've been promoting the heck out of our episodes. Please check out our Coraline episode this Saturday at 7 a.m. Central is when it goes live. Love to hear from you in the comments if you guys liked it, had any questions, or if we're wrong, which we are wrong, and I'll admit it. I don't know everything. These guys don't know everything. So Please share with us anything that you know be above and beyond what we have, or if we're wrong about something. And
I got a question.
yeah, what's up, Caleb?
What does the tentacle smell like?
It's got a foam latex smell, which it's hard to describe. If you know what foam latex smells like, that's what it smells like. Yeah. This is a tough one to smell. I don't want to get caught by these claws, even though the claws are made of like a rubber material. All right, on that note, we'll see you soon. Hopefully you watch our episode this weekend, and then we'll see you next week. We'll have more pieces to share, and hopefully we'll have somebody to interview as well. We just got to find someone. Goodbye, everyone.